Hello, hello. Oh, I'm so excited to see you all join us. Thanks for being here. Before we get started, I'm going to start with just a little bit of housekeeping notes. I'll keep them short and sweet and to the point. So, first, we want you guys to stay engaged. Here in the webinar with us, we will record this and make sure you receive the recording after the webinar via email. So, you don't need to worry about trying to keep, meticulous notes. You'll get this recording dropped in your inbox soon after the webinar concludes. And, feel free to share it with your colleagues, friends, and whoever you think could value from this webinar. Secondly, on the same theme of engagement, please submit your questions at any time throughout the webinar. So on your screen towards the top right-hand corner, you should see a little question box. Go ahead and click on that question box. If you have any questions for our speakers, go ahead and drop it in. And at the end of our session, we'll do a live Q&A. We'll get through as many as we can. If we don't get a chance to answer your question live, we will do our best to try to follow up with you afterwards and get that answer for you. Lastly, we make our webinars for you all. We want you guys to enjoy our webinars, keep coming back for more. So if you have 60 seconds to spare after we conclude today's session, please go ahead and complete our quick little survey. Let us know what you liked. Even more or equally important, let us know what you didn't like as well. I promise you, we take your feedback into not only consideration, the guardrails as we continue to develop our webinar content. So please take a chance to fill it out, and we'd love to hear from you. And without any further ado, I'm so excited to kick off this series, the first of 3 MDM security series. And today we're focusing on managing Android and iOS devices. So bringing to stage our speakers for today, I will let you all introduce yourselves.
All right. Okay, hey there, folks. So I'm Chad Palatic. I'm the solutions consultant. So they tell me that I'm the MDM expert, and I'll be taking you guys through the product here today. Excited to kind of answer all your questions and everything later in the Q&A as well. I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Kim.
All right, thanks, Chad. I think Chad is definitely the star of the show, but I'm also equally excited to be here today. My name is Kim Zupancic. I'm a senior product marketing manager here at LogMeIn, and really excited to be walking you through all of the great MDM content we have prepared.
Awesome. Well, I'm super excited to watch and support. You guys let me know if you need anything, and I will kick it off to you all.
All right, thanks, Danny. So before we dive into today's topic, I want to make sure that everyone here is familiar with LogMeIn Resolve. So allow me to just give you a quick overview of LogMeIn, which is a modern unified endpoint management solution, really a true all-in-one platform for IT teams and MSPs. It brings together several functionalities. I have a lot of these listed on the side. You can think of RMM, remote support, help desk, IT asset management, automation, AI, you name it. But today the focus is really on mobile device management. And so that is what we'll be focused on. And of course, we'll be zooming in more specifically on security and how you can manage and control your Android and iOS devices. And so with that, let me give you a quick snapshot into the agenda and what you can expect for today's session. So we'll start with a quick primer again on MDM and security. We just want to make sure that we're all aligned on the possibilities and the considerations when it comes to MDM security. And then we'll move quickly into a live product demonstration led by Chad, where you'll get to see Resolve MDM and how that works in real time. And of course, as we mentioned, we'll have some time for a Q&A. So definitely don't be shy, use the chat, send them in. We'd love to hear from you. All right. So when we talk about MDM security, I'm sure a lot of the words that are listed here on the side are familiar to you and also may come to mind. When it comes to security, we often think about policies and how we can make sure that we standardize our security settings across our devices. Remote lock and wipe is also very well known and very popular so that we can protect those lost or stolen devices. Location tracking, encryption to keep company data secure, and of course, password enforcement are also top of mind to really, allow us as IT professionals to maintain consistency and protection across those managed endpoints. So this is just a snapshot into MDM security. And we'll be reviewing all of these features that fall under this umbrella of mobile security within a couple minutes in the demo. So now, before we jump into the exciting part, let me also briefly walk you through, how to get started with Android and iOS. So if you are maybe a little bit less familiar or new to the world of MDM, the good news that we want to start with is that with LogMeIn Resolve, the experience of managing Android devices and iOS devices is largely consistent. So if you're coming here with maybe some apprehension, not to worry, you'll find that applying policies is super flexible and customizable across both. You can manage those apps and those content within the platform in a central fashion as well. And everything is monitored and controlled through the same console and of course the same dashboard. So it's definitely made so that it is very easy on you and extremely user friendly as well in terms of the user interface. That said, before again we get into the meat of the topic, we do want to highlight some minor differences between the operating systems. So here I have some nuances that we'll review again in greater detail, but I did want to make sure that are highlighted so you come with that knowledge to the demo. So important to keep in mind that there are some variations when it comes to enrollment methods, app deployment, as well as device ownership and privacy controls. But not to worry, we have the best with us today, Chad, so he'll be able to walk us through what that means specifically. And of course, we want to tailor the demo experience as much as possible to our audience. So we have 2 quick poll questions prepared because we'd love to hear from you and see where everyone is situated when it comes to Android and iOS. So you should be able to see a poll come up on your screen. So we'd love to know, what operating platforms you currently manage or plan to manage in your organization. That'll give us a good, snapshot and idea of, what is most popular for the audience that's joining us live today. All right, so I see that we have a lot of answers coming in, so we'll give it another minute. So Chad, it looks like right now
Yeah.
we have maybe a clear winner.
Yeah, it looks like it. Very, very interesting. I'm excited to kind of break that down. That matches some of my experience. I see a lot of folks out there who either intentionally buy full fleets of iOS devices or, end up kind of with a mix a little less intentionally. I don't know how many folks, do specific Android buys. Usually that's tied to a specific use case. So I'm excited to kind of break all that down with everyone.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for those of you that took the time to answer this first poll. We have a last one that you'll see come up on your screen. As a follow-up to that question, we'd love to know if those devices are currently managed with the MDM solution or not. There is no right or wrong. Again, it's just to make sure that we understand, where we're threading with the demo.
Okay. Very
Right.
interesting. Definitely going to spend some time talking about enrollment today because it looks like I don't want to bias it's too late. I already biased the responses. But looks like most people don't have their stuff managed quite yet. So we'll spend some time talking about that.
Yeah, it looks like it's a good mix of either unmanaged or partially, which is where the bulk of our audience is sitting. So thank you so much again for taking the time to answer that. It's always very helpful. All right, so with that context in place, I'll now hand it over to you, Chad, so that you can walk us through the demo.
For sure, for sure. All right. Kim, you want to make sure you can see my screen here?
I can.
All right, fantastic. So yeah, we're gonna kind of get right into it. Give me, what, actually, I'm gonna change one thing about that. Apologies for the delay. There we go. That will present even better for everybody watching. Okay, so yeah, we're gonna get right into it when it comes to kind of the feature set that we were just discussing, right? I understand, when we're looking at an environment or a case where most folks have their devices unmanaged, I think the place to start is, talking about enrollment, and that's really per Kim's slides. That's going to be the part of the tool where these platforms diverge the most, right? Not in a crazy way. We keep it nice and straightforward. And I want to show that to you guys, right? We want to manage our devices' security. First thing we got to do is get them into our platform so we can make any type of change to them, right? So when you first log into Resolve MDM, the thing that you'll see is this enrollment and kind of basic setup page. When you click enroll device, we break down the different platforms that we support, here for you. We can walk you through, enrolling devices from, Android manufacturers or Apple directly through this UI. It's pretty great. We can choose the type of enrollment we want right here. There are going to be some opportunities, especially if you guys attend the further sessions, to talk about the differences between bring your own device and fully company owned and all of that. But this is kind of where we make those core decisions. On Apple, it's a little different. Apple wants us to do most of our management through a backend that they provide called Apple Business Manager. We can still scan a QR code if we need. Oh no, it's my video pause.
Yeah, I was gonna say it looks like you're a little bit blurred. We can hear you all right, but your video is blurry for some reason.
How unfortunate.
And now,
I'm
okay,
blaming
you're
Apple
back.
for that one. Okay. Yeah, but yeah, the real thing is, we integrate with Apple Business Manager. We can do Android kind of bulk enterprise enrollment. All works really, really well through here. And we'll talk more about kind of enrollment, I think, in detail if we go through that when we go through that BYOD and kind of fully managed session. When we talk about that. So I'd encourage folks who are curious about that to attend that session as well. Just know that turn it into a wizard. We make it a couple of clicks. That's where the real differences are. And then we get to talk now about how they're simpler, right? And I can kind of address all those core features that, Kim mentioned earlier in the slides. You can see I've got a list here. These are all my enrolled devices. I can see which ones are online, which ones are offline, which ones have been retired, all listed directly through here. I can have the iOS and Android devices kind of live together in this list if I need. And I can double click into any of them and kind of see a good overview of what these devices are up to. So this is the Google Pixel. You can see I've got the device name, storage, everything that I might want to know about it, encryption status. I can even see the application inventory all directly through here. And we've also got this awesome bar up top, which we'll get to in a second. Just remember what I just showed you and how that looked for that Android device. I'm going to pop into an iPhone now. And I really want to make that point that kind of Kim was making earlier, which is that we present these all in very similar ways, right? Whenever there's, kind of core functionality, we try to present it in the exact same way. And some of that core functionality is especially security focused, like in our security dropdown here. For all of our platforms that support it, you're going to see the core options to do things like lock the device. So that is just if the device is currently unlocked, go ahead and lock it with the current passcode policy, the ability to clear or reset and enforce whatever the passcode policy is that you have. The ability to enable lost mode on iOS devices, which is pretty cool. If you've ever used Find My iPhone, this essentially hooks into that API, lets you put a message on the screen and manage it directly from a corporate, kind of perspective instead of having to share 100 different iCloud accounts. I'm willing to bet for all the people that have unmanaged devices in the audience, that there's a good chance you guys are probably managing multiple iCloud accounts by hand. And in fact, if that's the case and you want to throw like a thumbs up in chat, that'd be really, really useful to know. There's a little react button, I believe it's active for you guys. Also drop a question about that if you want. But yeah, the biggest part of this is, we have those kind of immediate corrective actions that we can take directly through the security menu, right? So we can remote wipe them from here, we can lock them. And then also another thing that we might need to know is location tracking, right? So there are some platform differences in how this works in terms of how we set it up, but what's the same is how we present it. So you can see that I've got an iPhone here that has location tracking enabled, and we have it set to phone home pretty often. And I told it, show me everywhere that the device has reported in the last 2 weeks. This is this incredible, this is in the incredible city of Mexico City. And you can see it's been all around, right? We can widen or narrow that search in terms of the length of it that we want to have. We can also see, hey, where did it report from today, right? We can get pretty specific on that, down to a couple meters, really. So setting that up is a little different. We can talk about it in detail for anybody that needs to explore it when we get there. But on Android, it's more of an automated process. On iOS, it requires a little bit of by hand work on the device. That's a requirement from Apple, but either way, that core kind of security functionality of what can we do to manage the location of these devices is addressed by the tool. And we also have the ability, like I said, to use lost mode or wipe those if we recognize, okay, this device is really somewhere it should not be. It's giving me, kind of strange data in terms of the report back here. All right, so what other things do we want to talk about? Another core one of those is that simple question of encryption. I kind of went through this earlier, but I want to give you guys a little bit more detail. So the core question that we'll ask to most devices is simply just, is it encrypted, yes or no? And this is a term, I don't want to assume that we all have like a universal understanding of it. Pretty much when we talk about encryption, what we mean is like, if I were, as a bad actor, were to get the phone, and maybe I don't have the passcode, but I hook it up to my computer and I run an attack on it or something, and I'm able to actually pull the data off of it even without the passcode. Is the data that's in that phone's kind of environment, is it obfuscated and protected by the password, or does the password just really protect us from the first lock screen, right? Plenty of devices out there have, just the passcode enabled, but don't have proper encryption policy in place, right? We can see that directly through here. This is also a good segue into another part of our core functionality, which is when we're talking about something that's not as simple as just remote wiping a device. When we talk about remote wiping, we're usually just, are we remote wiping the device or not? That's kind of the core question. But when it comes to encryption, we might have options that we want to take care of. And for that, we have our configuration profiles menu. And this is full of tons of different security relevant features for both Android and iOS. You can see we break down these different categories as such. And for Android, let's go ahead and explore what's possible with device encryption. I go in here, I choose Android, I choose device encryption for my category, and then we just have one box in the most basic form, which is whether or not we want it enabled. Because for Android, all of the different manufacturers can have different device encryption standards, different kind of defaults. We can at least inform the operating system that it needs to enforce one of those, right? But we also have different methods too. When it comes to things like Knox, we can restrict further functionality, which I'll go over in a minute. Knox being Samsung's particular platform. And it's the same thing too with Apple. We've got some configurability there. Another good thing to look at is passcode enforcement. Of course, we can know whether or not someone has a passcode. Of course, we can take actions around that. But what about if we want to get specific with those passcode requirements? So I'm showing you guys the menu here for iOS. I can say, hey, the minimum length, because maybe they're really secure devices, needs to be 12 characters. It needs to have 2 complex characters, and I'm not going to let it have simple values. And and on top of that, I want this to rotate every 3 months, and also maximum screen lock timeout of 15 minutes. We can set a history restriction so they can't reuse their passcode. It's a really common kind of security hole in a lot of people's environments. And we can also set how long it takes for the device to require the passcode, right? So now instead of having important protected data, but the devices, are not really managed or, not really set to enforce that passcode, now we can make it so that way, as soon as they click that lock button or as soon as the device is sat down, passcode is required, right? Really, really helpful stuff. And we can even set the device to automatically wipe if a certain threshold is, gone over in terms of failed attempts. So lots of useful functionality there in terms of protecting data. um, you know, and for any of these, I think I'll show you guys one more, right? When it comes to restrictions and security, we kind of had this really nebulous sort of policy that we talked about earlier, which was just data protection more broadly. But how do we protect our data, right? Maybe we have on our devices, people are allowed to be logged into their corporate email, but we don't want them to be able to log into, other applications, kind of get lost or go too deep into the operating system where they shouldn't, or to take data from one of our protected applications and extract it into one that we think is into one that would allow them to take bad actions with our data, right? So we have policies here too, like application allow lists and application block lists that let us do things like specify specifically the apps that we want to block. And I'll give you guys a better functional example of this in a minute here. Or say, hey, this device should only use these 5 applications, right? Really kind of core stuff that's really useful here. Another part of a lot of companies' security postures is a kiosk mode, right? So what can we do, to make it so that way, like it is just locked down to like 1 or 2 core functionalities here. And in fact, though I don't know how visually easy it will be for you guys to see, I've got one set up here on the Samsung tablet from us, and you can see it presents just the 4 applications that we want, really able to just lock them out of even the notification panel, the settings menu. We can get very, very in-depth with how much control we take over these devices. It's super helpful. What about restrictions? This is another great example. I'll show you both the Android and iOS version of this. We can deny any built-in software functionality on the iPhone that we need. We turn off even, keyboard prediction or spell check, or maybe we want to totally deny screen capture. This is very important for, making it so that way we actually protect our data, right? What does it mean to protect our data? It can be complicated depending on your use case, but we're going to give you all the tools that you need to make that happen, right? Let me show you guys some of the functionality in terms of restrictions for Android as well, too. So maybe we're in here and I want to change just some hardware options. Okay, I can say the user cannot uninstall an app, right? Or maybe they don't have the ability to install apps. Maybe I need to entirely disable the camera. We've got that functionality built in here. Even if it's something as simple as just making sure that they don't alter the way that the device presents its UI. We don't want to let them change the wallpaper. We turn that off. Just Bluetooth entirely, cellular mode, we can force that on. Can be really, really helpful for when it comes to things like tracking the location of your devices, right? It's good to have the location tracking policy, but what happens when the end user goes in and flips off the cellular data by accident? We can force that on. We can even get in here and go as far as like preventing the end user from turning the device off, right? These are things that are going to let us take way better control of these devices, way better of the data that's contained within them, and also give us more information to act when we have to take corrective action, right? I want to prevent a factory reset or disable SMS entirely. I mean, this is another key one, USB file transfer, right? I talked about people acting, to pull that data off of the device. Maybe it's not perfect. Like if somebody has custody of a device, they're going to have a lot of different vectors. They might try to get your data off, but we can deny them most of the likely ones, right? And that's going to give you time to take corrective action on your end. These are really, really core features here that I think are probably just worth keeping in mind as we kind of jump through all of this. And it can even be something as simple as just like, look, sometimes there are vulnerabilities in the operating systems that we run on these devices. Like Apple will make errors, Google makes errors with Android, and these create security vulnerabilities. We can force them to install these updates as soon as they come out, so that way there's no more waiting around, finding out that somebody hasn't updated your corporate iPad in 2 years and it's causing core application kind of compatibility issues, right? So painting the picture here, we have a lot of controls to kind of increase the security posture of your devices. And when we finish filling out that menu, they go into this list down here, right? And from there, I can examine these, see which apps we've allowed, disallowed, but of course I can also deploy them, to devices by hand. I can say every device in this list needs to get this home screen and kiosk configuration, right? Of course, also I can deploy out applications too. And this is the key thing as well. If you are in a BYOD environment, we'll talk about this more during that session. If you push out Outlook to a user-owned device, you can make it so that way when they leave the company, you pull that data off safely as well. All of this gets bundled together into what we call business policies. So the next question that I always get is, okay, Chad, well, I built all my policies. What do I do to make sure that these are actually enforced? Well, we can do that here with our tagging system. So I can create a combination of all of our different configurations. So that's our security stuff and all of our different applications that we want on the devices. And I can associate this with a tag, right? So this is for group one warehouse. That's who gets this policy. And I can say, hey, you know what? These 5 devices or 6 devices, they have that tag, and we're going to enforce that policy. I think the last thing that I'll really show you guys on this key functionality, really, well, maybe 2 more things, is, we can see the devices that are in this group and which ones are in and out of compliance. And our system will take immediate action to rectify that, right? So it'll keep these devices in compliance with your security policy, even if the user breaks that compliance. And the last thing that I'll show you guys here, I'm going to hop over to my other test environment where I actually have this tablet hooked up, is I'm going to have to log back in. How embarrassing. 1 second here. But yeah, we are one of the faster MDM environments when it comes to issuing commands. And the only reason, by the way, that I'm getting this, and this is embarrassing, is just I set all this up before we hopped on the demo here, and it's just timed out because as a security platform, it's important for us to have session timeouts and everything, and I got hosed by my own behavior there. Okay, great. So we're back in. The thing that I wanted to show you is just, let's say I want to issue a remote reboot to this device, right? Got it here in my hand. I click it now, and it's already rebooting before it even finishes loading the page, right? Other MDMs, they'll take time. They'll do things like batch it. They'll wait to send out all of your commands together in a batch. We don't do that because we think that these things are urgent and need to happen immediately. And you'll see that functionality with us as you explore the product. But that's probably a good overview of what we got for security today. I hope I was able to share a little bit about what getting these devices in here will look like for you guys. But with that, I know we got plenty of questions. So Kim, why don't we hop back to the slideshow real quick, and we'll see about answering
Yes.
some Q&A here.
And
Yeah.
to the point of questions, if you like what you saw but might have some more follow-up questions, that is normal. There's only so much that we can cover in this session, and that is why we have this poll question. If you're interested in a personalized demo of Resolve MDM, just to better understand like how this could really work for you specifically in your own environment, let us know, and we'll definitely connect you with an expert like Chad or someone on his team so that you can have a better understanding of how that would work for your organization. So I see that we have some
For
answers
sure.
coming in. So I'll give it maybe a couple more seconds just to make sure that everyone has the chance to reply yes. And from there, I also saw that we have quite a few questions in the chat. So we'll definitely get to those as well. And I believe before we get there, a quick little note that this is actually a series. So Chad briefly mentioned BYOD as an example. Know that the next session is all about protecting company versus BYOD devices. So if you want to learn more, definitely join us for that one. If you registered, I believe you should have all the other sessions in your calendar already. But if you want to invite a friend, a colleague, you can use those QR codes to get to the registration page and share that accordingly. And lastly, the last one is about data governance. So we hope that a lot of you join us. Think these sessions are always quite helpful. All right, so I think we are now at a place where we can answer some Q&A. And actually, before we get there, we also have a free 14-day free trial of Resolve MDM that you can start today with this QR code. And so if you want to get started, you can also do that this way. All right, so let me get to the questions. Okay, so the first question I have is, I saw that there was a personal device option. What can be controlled in that mode?
Yeah, I'll break this down again in more detail tomorrow in the BYOD session specifically because it's hard to sum it up in just 60 seconds. But what I always say is you can do additive work. It's easy to add something to the device. It's not easy to prevent the user from using their device in a certain way. And we can get more specific either tomorrow or, I'm happy to take a personalized demo with any of you guys. So thank you, Wayne.
Perfect. Well, Wayne, if you have a follow-up, let us know in the chat and we'll make sure to address that. All right, so from Eric, we have, can you restrict iOS devices from signing in with an iCloud account?
Yes, but you probably don't need to. This is a common question that I encounter. Mostly it's the reason it's problematic to log into an iCloud account is usually because of data governance, and the way that the device behaves when it's in an unmanaged mode. Really, the better thing is like, um, yeah, we would talk about that in more detail, but I would say the answer is yes. You can keep it from being an issue. This is a very common question that I get. It's just there's technical details on it.
Perfect.
Uh,
I don't believe you'll be able to answer that in great detail, but Mia just has a yes, no. This person is wanting to know if we can also control Windows devices.
Yes, but we should talk about exactly what you're trying to do with them.
Perfect. So David, if you have specific questions, let us know. And again, we're happy to schedule a follow-up with you just to get a sense of what you need, and we can schedule a personalized demo for your environment. All right, so we have, okay, a question. How do you get applications into the MDM so we can deploy to devices?
For sure. I'm just going to take over screen share real quick. So that all happens here under the applications menu. You go to add, you choose your application type, and then you add it directly through this wizard. And I'll show you the example of an Android one. We can also do bulk licensing through Apple's volume purchase program. There's a bunch of things we can do to make it easier. But like, hey, what do you know? Maybe I need to get QuickBooks on my devices. What do you know? It's a little different with iOS, but that's a good example. They go into this list and then they can be deployed out either as part of a business policy or by hand.
All right. Um, so we are at time, actually, maybe a minute over. Chad, should we stay on for maybe an extra 2 or 3 just so that we can get to more of these questions?
Yeah, let's get these done. Yep.
All right. And if we don't get to your question, we'll get back to you after this session. We just have maybe a little too many to be able to answer in the next like 60 seconds or so. Um, okay, so a question here, Android specific, can users bypass checks using secure folders? Generally, how does that integration work?
It should
That's a,
be no,
okay,
but we would have to talk about it in detail to know what type of secure folder that you're investigating. I mean, you can generally restrict any functionality, your total control of the device.
perfect. Um, Okay, so this question from Pam, as to your poll question, we have our techs using their personal phones. What can we do to make it safer?
You got to come to the BYOD session. It depends on exactly what you need done. There are plenty of things that can be done, but I need to know what safer means for you. And it might be, a good time to also have an individualized conversation. Like you can get my time and I'll spend an hour talking to you about exactly how we do that. Um, Sorry, I'm not trying to gatekeep the info, but that's BYOD takes more effort and there are limitations and restrictions to it, and I go over it tomorrow. Um,
Perfect.
yeah.
All right, so maybe we can hit on a last question from Hunter. Do you recommend letting users know about the tracking history feature? Are there any compliance issues with this in different countries that you know about? Can users turn that off?
Yeah, I mean, you gotta check your local legislation because, like, even in the United States, I believe there are different requirements, even state to state. In general, also, like I've worked in IT, I've been the person, I've been the user. I think personally speaking, it's good to inform them where possible. For example, on Android, they're literally notified of it, like when it's happening though. Like that's like a function that Google has brought in, which brings most things into compliance. And it's sort of similar on iOS, but you got to check your local legislation. I mean, generally speaking, I lean towards like we want to we want people to know what's going on with their devices. There are cases where this isn't the appropriate fit. I've seen it, but yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you, everyone. I think that rounds out the session. Just a quick note that the session number 2, company versus BYOD, as a topic is actually on May 1st. That's also a Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern time. So we definitely hope to see you there. And for those of you that had questions that we didn't get to, we'll definitely follow up after today.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We hope that you enjoyed it.
All right.
Thanks
See you,
all.
folks. Bye.